Hi, it's Keith Townsend from the CTOadvisor.com with CTO Daily Dose. We're talking the hidden cost of cloud, specifically around licensing. Thanks for SNC Storage over on Twitter for giving me the topic for today. You can ask for additional topics, hashtag CTO Daily Dose, either on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and I'll find it and I'll potentially talk about it. If not on the Daily Dose, hopefully in a blog post. So, the hidden cost of cloud. There's a bunch of hidden costs in cloud, but we're going to talk about one that we can most definitely avoid a lot of pain even before considering moving the application to the cloud, and that's licensing. This isn't anything new that the industry is experiencing. When we went from a physical set of hardware to a virtualized set of hardware, there was a lot of questions around licensing. Even in something as simple as Microsoft OS, Microsoft Windows, could we legally run 10 copies of Windows on the same physical server that we used to just run one copy on? Doesn't seem like something that Microsoft would approve of. Same problem exists then and now about Oracle licensing. Could we run an Oracle database on a VMware cluster and have the same licensing cost? The Oracle question is still, kind of out there, but the Microsoft question was answered. Microsoft came up with a licensing model with Windows Data Center and versions of Windows that you can run multiple copies of Windows on the same physical node and not pay a premium to virtualize Windows. Other software, as we move up the stack, other software vendors actually had the same concerns. They licensed TIBCO, for example. TIBCO licenses per processor. So how did that translate to virtualization? Most vendors today have come out and they've had a stance on virtualization, and we understand virtualization licensing versus physical bare metal licensing much better today than we have in the past. As we go to the cloud, we can't make the mistake that and assume that those licensing rules translate from a virtualized environment to a multi-tenant cloud environment. Again, we can use our poster child for this, Microsoft. Microsoft actually didn't have a licensing model for something as simple as Windows 10 or Windows 7. So your desktop Windows, you actually can't legally run a copy of desktop Windows, Windows 7, Windows 10, even going back as far as Windows XP, on a multi-cloud instance. Microsoft's licensing explicitly prohibits this. This means that if you wanted to do VDI out in the cloud, you basically couldn't legally do it in a multi-tenancy environment. You'd have to basically have private cloud, bare metal machines out in the cloud if you wanted to do VDI using Microsoft's desktop OS. So vendors such as AWS got around that by offering VDI using Windows Server. They just, give you a remote desktop to a Windows Server, skin it as a desktop OS, but underneath the pinnings are Windows Server. That's one workaround in the cloud. Another big issue that's taking place, so Microsoft has solved that problem. Beginning in September, they'll start to offer Windows Server Client as a consumer of multi-tenant clouds. But another kind of purposeful cost that we're seeing in the cloud is Oracle. Oracle has specifically come out and said that unless you're running Oracle inside of the Oracle cloud, then you are basically going to pay a penalty, meaning twice as much of the licensing cost to run your workload in AWS, Azure, IBM, etc. If you want to run Oracle in one of those public cloud offerings, then you are going to pay a premium. Oracle is trying to drive revenue towards their IaaS service to allow you to run Oracle inside of that solution. So these problems exist throughout all types of applications. So before you jump to the cloud and you lift and shift your application, while technically it's just virtualization, the application should work just as long as we don't run into any of the issues we talked about in yesterday's CTO advisor, talking about workloads that practically don't run real well in the cloud. Then you should be all set technically. It's from a cost perspective. Are you opening yourself to a painful audit or a painful true up with your software layer and licensing around the software and applications that you run in the cloud? That's it for this CTO Daily Dose. You can follow me on the web, thectoadvisor.com, on Twitter at CTO Advisor, and of course, please subscribe to the podcast, engage in the conversation, hashtag CTO Daily Dose, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Talk to you guys tomorrow's Daily Dose, which we'll talk about DR in the cloud and whether or not you actually need DR. Talk to you guys tomorrow.